Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can watch us on YouTube and Rumble while following us on Facebook, or find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe or follow today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Hello, welcome, and wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. This is Conscious Radio Network's The Seance Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, please subscribe, like, share, comment, and don't forget to listen wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, our guest is Mark Wiseman, a modern-day shaman and sworn 53rd generation Ultner. The Norse gods, Odin and... Okay, there's another word. Freya.
Freya.
Freya. There we go. I'm getting it. I'm slowly. Formerly a Christian pastor, Mark's deep study of world religions led him to his spiritual home in the Celtic Norse tradition. With advanced academic degrees and expertise in psychological trauma, he's developed methods to help individuals heal and build joyful, fulfilling lives. Mark is here to share his wisdom rooted in ancient teachings and show how love, peace, and hope can guide us on life's journey. Let's welcome to the seance, Mark Wiseman. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. And thank you for scheduling. Yes. A lot of my family history is Norse. My great grandfather was born in Norway. Luckily, I've had the honor of getting to know him growing up as a child. Know very little about his history, but always admired the Norse tradition. And now you currently reside in Alaska, correct?
You?
Yeah, wonderful, beautiful, beautiful country. Wow. And so what we're going to talk about is today, especially when it comes to spiritual beliefs and its effect on mental health and vice versa. How do spiritual beliefs affect the mental health of people?
Oh, there are so many ways that our spirituality and the beliefs that we carry with us kind of can pull us off center, can pull us out of our authentic space, which then creates these small pieces of stress that exist in the mind. And what these small stresses will ultimately do is wind up crowding the bandwidth that we have for processing emotional trauma or emotional events that occur in our experience. And what happens when you overrun that area is that in many cases we see where people are no longer able to use their cognitive space. They can't think their way through it. So it's literally becomes this struggle to just take the next step, to take the next breath. And so what my goal of helping people to understand the spirituality effect on our emotions is to control that space that would be crowded up by these small stresses and allow them to use the total bandwidth to handle the experiences that we have in this lifetime. It really, unfortunately, emotion and emotional experiences can have such a profound impact on our functioning, on just the way we see the world. And so if we're blocking everything out, it's hard to make a spiritual connection at all. And we find ourselves being pulled further and further away from that authentic space that is ourself.
Hmm.
I think that's really what my mission is. That's really what I have found that helps people to kind of trim back that trauma, help them to find that cognitive space. Then we can deal with living steps to move forward, to embracing our experiences, understanding what they are, and being able to live a happy, full life.
Yeah. Do you notice people? I mean, I've noticed, or I've known a lot of people that earlier getting to know them, not really religious, and then as time goes on, they kind of get into a religion, and it could be anything, and then suddenly it's like they completely change. They're a completely different person. And do you see that people can sometimes use certain religions or religious practices or spiritual practices, and they kind of don't use a level of discernment to where it kind of, like you said, their mind gets clouded and they are so involved and they kind of lose, lack of a better word, become deranged?
Well, they get kind of drawn into what we would refer to as the mob mentality, if you
Yeah.
will. They can really get drawn into that, and that is 100% true. I think we're all susceptible to
Mhm.
some extent. We've done scientific studies after scientific studies that speaks about people who were willing to just go stand in line. They don't even know what they're standing in line for. They're
Uh,
just standing in line. Why? Because that's what everyone else is doing. Um, there's comfort in numbers, and we have to remember. I think one of the major driving energies behind most modern monotheistic practices and a lot of the cults has always been this: oh, we're all here, so come on down. We're all here. Be part of this. Um, you never have to stand alone. You never have to worry about being alone. And I think that mentality has created more or less a safety net, that people are more secure in being, at least there's other people going through the same thing, kind of thing.
mhm.
So I think when we talk about people getting deranged, of course, what we mean is that they're just being fed experiences that don't align with who they are really as people. And they've surrendered their willingness to go
Mhm.
back to their authentic self. They've surrendered that in quest to be included in this social organization, this social group, whatever it happens to be, religious or not. I mean, I think of if you travel in Europe and you go to a football game in Europe,
Mm.
um, there are some people that are very committed to football as a sport,
Oh yeah.
right? And they get kind of really involved. Kind of the same thing is applied here. Is that we've kind of surrendered our authentic self to be a part of something else.
Yeah. I know some people that they can tell you every member of their favorite sport team and the history of the sport team, whether they're active or not, or both.
Right?
And it's like, you know so much information, but you couldn't tell me the capital of your state that you live in.
Couldn't even tell me the capital of the state that this ball team is from. Right, right. I agree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they get kind of drawn into it. Um, and of course, the leadership of that group, whatever group it may be, that's kind of their job, if you will, or their
Mhm.
role in the situation, is to continue to provide information, whether that be misinformation to another person's perspective or not, is really irrelevant to the conversation, but they're providing the information that continues to drive this need to be included into those social organizations, into those social groups.
Yeah. Wow.
And so
Yeah.
teaching people to have the independence of thought, the willingness to be ourselves in the face of society that more or less shuns independence, more or less shuns those lone wolves in lieu of this safety net involved in this social order, if you will.
Yeah. Uh, so explain the work that you do.
I do a lot of things. Primarily, my favorite job is obviously to inform people to be themselves. Teaching people through my life coaching, or just being a shaman, and working with the wonderful people that I have the honor to do so, and to teaching them to think for themselves, to be who they are, and to check out the values that are in your heart and be that person. So teaching them to really do that. I've spent 25 years now working with returning veterans from combat assignments,
Mhm.
helping them to arrest this trauma into their mind, help them to gain that cognitive space where we can build these living mechanisms to help them kind of move forward in their lives, and learn from the past and grow into a happier future.
Yeah.
And so that's fortunately what the gods have blessed me with at this point, is just meeting a bunch of wonderful people who really want to change. They want to be happy again. They want to be themselves again. Just showing them how to do that.
Mm. Yeah. That's a group of individuals that definitely could use the help. Especially seeing combat. Those are coming back and seeing combat. I mean, that's that's an experience that most of us do not get to
Agreed.
see in a lifetime, and especially in today's society and today's history with technology and stuff. I mean, there's I've seen some combat mission. I haven't been to combat, but I've seen and seen some stories of some people that shared some stories with me, and it's like, wow, it yeah, it's incredible how
It's
somebody can withstand that and try to move on with their life.
it's a pretty powerful thing. And when you think about the and a lot of times we see footage, or we see video games, or even television movies and whatnot. And while there is some level of visual impact to this experience, it certainly doesn't even come close to actually being there
Hmm.
and witnessing it firsthand. So these people, these wonderful men and women who are willing to give it all for our freedom, as they return, and they're struggling to kind of, what's the lesson that you can take away from something like that? What do you walk away with? And so kind of trying to figure that out, and then how that works now as a civilian. My perspective has to change. My direction has changed. So a lot of things change for these folks. And unfortunately, many of the systems that are currently in place for that are really lacking
Yeah.
in a true connection to reality. So these people find themselves very struggling quite a bit.
God. Yeah, especially those who have done service for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even more than that. It's like when you get back into civilian life, you don't know anything else. It's like you're
Right,
lost. You're
right.
lost. You have no sense of direction. Um, yeah, man.
And a lot of these folks, I mean, they're enlisting right out of high school, so
Oh
they
yeah.
really haven't had life's experience before. Now they're kind of formed into this unit to now do these certain tasks, these certain jobs within the military, and certainly depending on what experiences they have, they when they get into the civilian market, now all of a sudden it's like uh, there's nothing that really matches. and,
Yeah.
And if so, I don't have this really uh, gorgeous resume at which to provide to combat against someone who's been home building their resume, not living that life. So helping them to kind of grasp all of these pieces and understand what a blessing they truly are. That's a lot of these men and women who come back struggle significantly with a self-worth. They
Yeah.
come back and they feel, that they're underneath all of society. They're cast away, if you will. And so helping them to reestablish that self-worth and that value of who they are and what they bring to this wonderful mosaic of physical lifetime that we have, helping them to see that and to live that and to really absorb that so that they can be happy again.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So why do spiritual beliefs impact mental health?
I don't think it's a why as much as it does. We are a spiritual being at our core. There's no two ways around that. Um, we were born in the spirit realm. We will
Mm.
return there once we're done with this physical form. What we have to understand is not as much why and is as much as how can I use that to my benefit? How can I grasp my spiritual journey, which is insanely unique?
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, oh well, we just go to church on Sunday and it's check the box and move on. But our spiritual journey includes all of our life. It's taking out the trash, it's doing the dishes, it's cleaning up the dog mess in the backyard. All of those things are part of our spiritual journey. Why? Because they set our emotional states that then allows us to interpret the reality at which we experience. So our emotions, how we feel about the day, is setting how we see reality,
Yeah.
how we're going to remember this day. Are we going to remember it as a bad day or a good day? We have the power to set that. So understanding that, I think, helps people to to come to this place where it's not a matter of why we interface with our spiritual journey. It's how can we interface with it in
Mm.
such a way that it's beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when it comes to you talk about reality, and nowadays, especially with technology and science, and we're starting to now question reality. What is reality? Is reality something we truly control? Or are there levels of reality where it's like, okay, we can't control this, but we can control this, like free will? What are your thoughts on reality, being able to control it and not control it, and free will?
Well, I think firstly and foremost, free will is a real thing. We always have that choice, and that's a great segment to saying we have a choice.
Mm,
We have a choice as to how we see the world around us, how we interpret this reality.
yeah.
Um, I'm always I always bring up the story when my father passed away. I was a young man then, and in the morning we went to a funeral, a ceremony, a funeral.
Yeah.
Very sad, very somber, very low key, very reserved, and that was how it was celebrated. And so that was a perspective of embracing his passing. That evening, my father being Irish Dane, we celebrated an Irish wake. Now,
Mm.
if you've ever been to a real Irish wake, there's lots of whiskey, and I don't fully remember the whole night. Suffice to say, the mood was very different
Oh yeah.
in that we we had one perspective of the physical being, the physical form passing away, and we embraced that in the morning, And then in the evening, we were celebrating the spirit's arrival into the spiritual realm, where lots of whiskey, lots of stories about the funny, goofy things that my father did when he was alive, right? And so, but the perspective was totally different. We mind you, we're still embracing the same event.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that event from very different perspectives, right? This is the same mentality. This is the same idea that we look at our reality, our version of reality. We could see all the horrible things. Just dial up the news one night and you can see all the horrible things in this realm.
Mm.
It's on display every night on the TV called news, right? But we can also change our perspective and look at maybe even the same news program with a different perspective. Instead of looking for the bad, the evil, the dark, the dislike, the unwanted, instead we change our perspective and look for the happy news, the reasons. What a beautiful dress the presenter has on, what nice graphics or whatever. There's always ways to see every experience from a different perspective. And when we're willing to do that, when we're willing to grow outside of, remember, our comfort zone,
Yeah.
step to the left or step to the right and look at an experience in reality from a different perspective, we always have that choice. And so your reality, even though we're watching the same exact thing at the same exact time, your experience of this reality may be completely different than mine. Even though all said and done, it's the same reality. We're standing right next to each other, but your brain's interpretation of what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching is going to be very different than what mine is, or someone else, right? So
Yeah.
that's when we think about reality. Reality is what you make it. Reality is what you interpret. What emotional interpretations you're applying to your physical sensory input as it goes into your memory.
Yeah. Yeah. It's reality is just a perception. It's like, and I tell people too, as the best way to explain it is, like you said, two people, like you and me, we're standing next to each other. One person might be colorblind and the other person isn't. That person that's colorblind, their reality is, as far as visual cortex, is completely different than the other person.
Right. When I was learning shamanic ways and becoming educated in outside the box kind of thinking, one of the ways it was described to me is if we all were together around a puddle on the ground, and we all stood shoulder to shoulder around this puddle, and we all looked at the puddle, and as we looked into the puddle, we saw the reflection of the sky above us on the kind of the opposite side there, right? So bouncing up. But if I move to the left or to the right, the reflection on the surface of the puddle changes. Has the puddle changed? No. The puddle is still what it was when I was standing over there. But as I continue to move around the puddle, I'm going to gain different perspectives of that puddle and ultimately come to a place where I can recognize it in its entirety. I don't see a limited view of this. I see the entire puddle from each perspective. But it's not until I turn to the person who's standing to the left and to the right where we're going to elevate our perspective of the puddle even greater as we gain their perspective of that puddle. So now, not only have I seen it from all these positions, but now I'm going to turn and I'm going to engage the person next to me, because now we're not just changing this perspective, but now we're looking through his emotional eyes or her emotional state. We're looking through that to see the way the puddle is. And it's only then that we begin to truly form harmony with other people, with other life forms on this planet.
Yeah. I love talking about this stuff on this show, man. It gets people's mind to expand.
It does.
And some people too, for the first time. Well, we'll talk about some subjects, and they'll look at you deer in headlights. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It,
And again, it goes back to our earlier conversation when we're talking about that comfort zone. We want so badly to be a part of something that when people come out and we speak about this independent thought and being yourself and finding your authentic and finding that line of congruence, when we start talking about all these, it's a very very touchy subject. When as an example, when I was leaving the church 2016, 2015, 2016, and I was leaving the church, and I said, the doctrine didn't work for me. The doctrine, the ideology behind Christianity just doesn't work, because, to assume that there's only one bridge over a creek is insane. So as I was leaving the church, there was volatile reactions to that. I mean, my shield maiden actually received death threats.
Whoa.
It was that bad. Granted, I kind of counted it as a feather in my cap that they liked me so much that they were really agitated. But the reality is that now I was willing to be alone. I was willing to walk my path all by myself. I didn't need anyone else. And that scares people.
Yeah.
That kind of thinking is like, no. We need to be in our little safety net. Even if it's a loose connection, I know that's there. And I was willing to be outside of that. And so it got pretty ugly for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not necessarily getting out of your own comfort zone. It made everybody else uncomfortable. Like, man, I don't know how I can get, it's different when somebody passes away. Someone passes away, and then the rest of the tribe has to kind of carry on.
But they're still in the zone. You're still in that net.
Yeah.
If they pass away, that's okay. When they left, they were still here.
Yeah.
But when you step outside and you're still alive, you step outside that box. That's where things get a little dicey.
Yeah. Playing the it's that time in your life where it's like, okay, I got to be the lone wolf. I need to get away from the pack for a while and, do my thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it comes to that and vulnerability, do you see that there's a potential when somebody gets into that vulnerability that it can also change to the good and to the bad? That if somebody were to leave like that and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and it's part of the spiritual journey, but making that decision, and now being vulnerable, do you see how that can play a role, positively or negatively, to with the mind and mental state?
Absolutely. And you're 100% accurate in saying it could go either way, right? I think there's a lot of people that would consider that inspiration, maybe, right? Mm-hmm. And they might start investigating and start learning and start figuring out, who they are, what's down here for them. I think there are other people that are going to quickly, get their blinders back on, and anything outside that blinder, just cast it away, and or just get it out of my realm of having to deal with. There are others, obviously, that fall into that second camp, I think, who are volatile to those things outside of what they don't understand, of what they can't or won't. I think won't's probably a better word. Won't deal with within their own minds, because they know it to be true. At the deep core of all of us, we understand our unique relationship with, whether it be deities, whether it be other spirits, whether it be other souls here on the planet. We know our relationships to them. We feel them all the time, every day. We know what it is. And what I find is, in many cases, people are stepping, and this is where we were talking before about stepping outside of our authentic space, stepping outside that to be a part of something that they really fully don't even understand themselves. But it's safer to be in numbers, right, than it is to be on the path alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of, I definitely share a little bit of the same life path as yourself. Maybe not in a longer time frame, maybe as yourself, but I remember I was brought in as an interim pastor of a spiritualist church here in Florida. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. I loved it. Got to know people. Got to express my gifts as a spiritualist medium, and meet new people, and help build the church, and help things going. And it was fun. But there was a moment where, other stuff in life had to happen, and I had to separate. I didn't want to. It was like, I did not want to go. But Spirit was like, tap me on the shoulder, be like, your time is limited.
Yep.
This is just a part of the journey. And next chapter.
Turn the page. Yep.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that, and I think your experience speaks volumes, is that many of us will have those moments when the spirits or the deities or the higher life force says, hey, that's good, you did good there, let's move, it's time to move on. And I think a lot of people will cast that off as coincidence or all these other things. Why? Because that fits into the narrative of the collective. It's so much more easy to say, hey, I'm leaving this group, but I'm going to join this other group over here because the beliefs are similar or whatever the case, but I'm having to move, right? I'm having to relocate for work or whatever. So that's my safety. So I'm moving from one safety pod to another over here. And I think that many people do that almost every day, and sometimes they don't even realize it, but they are doing that. And so spirits call us, and when the spirits call us, I mean, we can ignore it for so long, but eventually it'll catch up to us.
Yeah, the spirits will definitely get our attention in ways that we least expect it.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to listen to the whispers than it is the 2x4.
Yeah. Yep. I work with a Native American spirit, running bear, who kind of dwells on my property, and I was made aware of him by another. And it's like I knew he was there. I didn't recognize him. It took somebody else to go, hey, he's trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so that's what it was. I'm like, okay. But there's many other spirits, so I would just think it was like the collective, the group of them and stuff like that. No, there was a separate one. Just not looking for the attention, but it's like, hey, I'm here. I'm willing to teach you, give you some information, anything you need, let me know. Come out in the backyard, sit down, talk with me, give me a little whiskey every now and then.
Yep. And that's exactly, me. My transition really started in earnest in 2017 when I was doing some counseling for some men who had just returned from a combat assignment, and it was a very emotional couple of sessions.
Yeah.
And during one particular session, I just happened to, out of the corner of my eye, I caught 3 lights. Now, when I saw them out of the corner of my eye, and of course you turn, right, because you got to see, am I seeing things? Yeah. And sure enough, there were 3 lights, and they were on the wall and between me and the wall. And I was like, wow, that's kind of weird. I discounted it as kind of a reflection through a water bottle, or maybe something in the window was casting light differently, whatever the case, right? And so I kind of, okay, that's weird. That's really cool. And about the third day, the lights kept appearing, and I kept, and I kept kind of rationalizing it, saying, "Oh, it's going through water, or maybe bouncing off water on a leaf or something, and it's just reflecting." Well, on the third day, I decided to stick my hand in it to try to figure out where the light was coming from.
Yeah.
And of course, discovered that there was no source of the light. It was indeed its own light.
Wow.
And that would lead me to a series of conversations that would lead me to meet my great grandfather um, in a darkened room. Had the room darkened. I was sitting alone. I was contemplating the events, and he came to me and kind of said, "All right, you're here now. This is how we're going to move forward."
Huh.
2020, January 30th of 2020, I was trying to get my dogs to come in the house. My dog was sitting out in the middle of the yard, and I was really, and this is about 2.5, maybe 3 feet of snow. And she's sitting there, and I was like, that's weird. So I'll go out because maybe her collar got hooked on, a child's toy under the snow or something.
Yeah.
Got lots of toys out there for the grandkids. And so I assumed that there was something frozen in the ice and it caught her collar or something. Went out, and I was standing there, and it was at that moment that, of course, I felt a presence, like someone was walking up on me.
Huh.
I turned, and lo and behold, at about, I would say, probably right under 8 feet tall, was the man I recognized as Othin. And he
Wow.
was standing right there. And we spoke, confirmed my birthright of being Ufethnar. And we spoke, and I swore an oath to him that night out in my backyard. And what's really, I don't know, amazing now, but it certainly struck me at the time, was that we had what I would assume to be probably 15, 20-minute interaction out in the backyard.
Wow.
And of course, my dog is there the whole time. And before he turned and would leave. And we then, my dogs and I, made it back to the porch where we went. At that time, I realized I didn't have any shoes on. I was wearing a Scottish kilt, and I was in bare legs, no socks, no shoes, no nothing. And I had been standing in about 18 inches of snow for this whole 20 minutes, what I assumed was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We got inside, and I got the dogs settled down for the evening, went to go upstairs and realized that it was an hour and a half.
What?
That I had stood out there in the snow with bare feet, and no ill effects, no frostbite, no nothing. It was like I was standing on grass.
Wow.
So it was at that moment I realized that, yes, indeed, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I am certainly on the right path.
Man. Yeah, those are the moments, the metaphysical, paranormal, anomalous, and it's not anomalous, but some people call it supernatural. It's those moments in our life where there's no doubt this is a shift in direction. Right. Something divine is happening. That is, hey, I'm going to make sure that you understand that this is important.
I call this moment my 2x4 moment.
Yeah. I'm expecting it. like before we started recording this, I was mentioning that I made a decision yesterday or the day before that by the time this show broadcasts, I'll be just about a week or two from heading out to Mount Shasta, Northern California. And for those who are familiar with Mount Shasta, wow, there's a lot of energy there, and the land calls you. Somebody who always does these shamanic retreats, I saw that they were having another one. Another one was coming up. I'm like, she didn't have to say anything. As soon as I knew that was happening, I'm like, Spirit was calling. You're going. It doesn't matter how much it costs. You're going, and that's it.
Pack your bags.
Yes. So I'm expecting some revelation to happen when I'm there. There are spirits that are calling.
Oh, I agree. And I wish you the best, by the way.
Thank you. I'll let you know. I'll be closer to Alaska at that point. I might give you a call.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah.
I was speaking with a very good friend of mine who is actually Irish, and she was saying how she was in the marketing industry for a while, quite some time actually, and she really didn't feel a whole lot of anything as she traveled around London and Paris and that whole scope. And then something drew her home to Ireland. And when she arrived at Ireland, a game changer for her. It was the lands that had called her home. And she became, got ordained as a minister. She, there in Ireland, she just really felt all of these spirits just all of a sudden really came just out of nowhere almost, because she had returned home to the lands there in Ireland. And she speaks very highly of it. So in much the same way, I anticipate Mount Shasta to be the same for you. As you arrive, the spirits will welcome you and help you move to the next stage in your journey.
Yeah, and whatever that next stage is, it's like you mentioned, when the land calls you. I figure too, and what your thought is on this, where our past lives, that the story of our soul, the spiritual journey, our spiritual journey is not just this lifetime. It's all the lifetimes before that we incarnated into this body. And in the future, there is no past, present, future. It's all now, then, everywhere, infinite. When you say that, she went home, and it's like, when you think about that, you're like, it is so awesome to think that the land calls you somewhere that is connected to your spirit. That you're meant to go in this particular lifetime, like and like what's happened to you. It's amazing to think of this incredible journey and tapping into that. Do you think that is something that everybody should look forward to and try to maybe connect to?
I couldn't have said it any better if I just said it myself. No, I 100% agree that I think there are a multitude of spirits, whether it be the spirits of the lands or whether it be the other spirits, other kindred spirits around us in other physical forms. I think there are so many opportunities for us to grow as humans, evolve to what is the next level for us, whatever that looks like. Everyone's journey will be incredibly unique, and the best we can hope for is to just continue to grow and evolve as we go through this physical life, and certainly carrying those memories, carrying that knowledge and wisdom beyond.
Yeah, and evolving, moving forward as spiritual beings. Spiritual beings having this human experience. It's like, yeah, there's an infinite part of ourselves, and capturing that, just harness that and realize that. And it's like, then your mind just,
Yes. Yeah. I realize for some people how that, that is a concern, right?
Mhm.
Is, am I to this or to that? I think what one of the messages that I try to produce all the time is this idea that we are at the perfect location between, incarnating into this body and leaving it. There's a path, there's a journey, and all of the experiences within that journey equal the sum.
Yeah.
And so we learn. I went through a period of my life. I call it my dark years, which would lead to a drug overdose in 1989. From a drug overdose in late 1989 to meeting and marrying my shield maiden the following year in July.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I went from below the bottom here to the mountaintop of redemption in a matter of 7 months.
Wow.
Um, and my shield maiden and I, of course, are still married after 35 years.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you. She deserves all the credit, not me. I'm sure I make things much more challenging sometimes. But again, those experiences, each of those experiences have taught us something. I can look back at the 10 years that I spent in what I call my dark period, where I was drug using, alcohol using. I was, racing motorcycles at the time. I was just being a train wreck, essentially. But what a great understanding I have now for that path, that I can speak to people and say, hey, look, I can tell you right now, relief is not at the end of a syringe. It's not at the bottom of a bottle. Relief is when you let your mind grow, expand your consciousness, and start accepting your where you're going, what you want to be, where you want to go. And when you begin to do that, I think I that's where we go from bottoms to redemption.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting to the mountaintop, the summit. Man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we wrap up the show, for those who are watching can see it scrolling at the bottom, but where can they find you and what they can expect on your website?
Well, the website thankfully is getting to a place where we're really happy with it. It's updated dynamically. We have a multitude of live shows that we do every morning that are available on a multitude of channels, including New Reality TV, which is kind of the centralized hub. But at our website, you can find all the information about all those shows. You can find all the information about me, my message, what I'm doing, where I'm going to be, and certainly kind of what it all means to me, my journey.
Yeah.
It's also a great way to get a hold of me for those people who may have questions, who may feel stuck. And a lot of the problem with spiritual journeys is it can be fairly confusing between information, misinformation, and then our emotional push, which is pushing us um, through the use of this connection to the spirits. All of that can really sometimes make us confused. And so people have questions, they're welcome to visit our website at akulfhethnar.com, or the easier American version that we've done is NorseWhispers.com.
There you go.
And
Easy.
so Norse Whispers, a little bit easier for everybody to spell. Ulf Hefnar, of course, for me, it's easy, but I can write Old Norse, so it comes naturally. But that website is kind of the centralized hub of all of our social media, all of our communications. We do a weekly newsletter where we kind of recap everything. and just kind of allow people to follow along and hopefully discover what works for them, what helps them. To me, that's what it's all about. Is I'm giving you, giving anyone who will listen or read the opportunity to really explore who they are, learn out who they are, and where they want to be, and then use this information to help themselves get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, what do you have to offer as a takeaway, some words of wisdom before we leave today?
The first thing to remember, I tell everyone I deal with, is that you are perfect the way you are. There's nothing in the past that you can change. You simply learn those lessons and we move forward and we grow into what we learn. Be open, be willing, and it will happen. Follow your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And trust that voice in your head.
That voice actually is coming from your heart. So it's an echo, so you're good. Listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oof. Mark, blessings, my friend. Blessings. Keep me posted on any changes. Like I said, in a few months, I'll be closer than I'll ever be to your neck of the woods. And
who knows? Maybe I'll come down.
Yeah. It's a lot closer than it is in Florida.
I don't have a plan for July just yet, but who knows?
Yeah.
Spirits could call me home too.
There you go. Awesome. Mark, you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you very much, my friend. Namaste for my friend.
You are very welcome, and thank you for having me again.
You are very welcome. An honor to have you. An honor. Thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. And until next time, see you then.